The Golden Boot Pod is proud to announce that merchandise is now available. We have everything from t-shirts and hoodies, to hats and beanies, to drinkware, to wearables and blankets. You can find it all under the merchandise tab at thegoldenboot.podbean.com or go directly to thegoldenboot.com. As always, thank you for supporting the Golden Boot Pod.
The views and opinions expressed in the Golden Boot podcast are those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of the Golden Boot podcast as a whole.
Welcome back to another edition of the Golden Boot. Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, another edition of HBCU Hour. It's your boy Pooh Bear. I got my man Aunt Petty Murphy in the building. Daniel D. Williams in the bottom. And we got a special guest in the building. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, you may have heard him speaking during the HBCU games, giving that play-by-play, giving that I guess you could say, I don't know if I should say sweet melodic voice or how to describe it, but he comes in and tickles your ears with all the fancies. Mr. Jamie Walker.
What's up, man? You got me sounding like a lounge singer, man. Like I'm Luther or somebody, man. Big Luther, that's me.
Big Luther. Hey, say tickle your ears.
That's what come in with the
Jamie Walker, aka Barry White.
Oh man. Practice what you preach. How y'all doing, man? I appreciate y'all having me, man. I know we supposed to do this a long time ago, but I got to tell y'all from the rip, man. I appreciate your words of kindness, man. With my tragedy, man. Mom passed away, and couldn't do the pod then, but I'm definitely growing and getting better every day. So I'm glad to be on here. I'm glad y'all remember, man.
Hey, no, we appreciate you, man. Appreciate it. If we can't do anything but tell you, hey, our condolences, we're praying for you or something, you never know how that might change somebody or help them through a bad time. So it was the least we could do, man.
We're here if ever you need us, brother, no matter what the situation is.
Facts, man.
I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
All right. So first off, Jamie, we kind of know you, talking to you and stuff. Tell the people about you. Tell us how you're tied to HBCU and stuff. Tell us about yourself.
Originally from Lisbon, North Carolina, by way of Williamsburg, Virginia. Raised in the country, out in the woods, and so my HBCU experience comes from North Carolina A&T. I'm a graduate of North Carolina A&T, 2002 graduate of North Carolina A&T. And so after that, I'm an educator by trade. But along with that, I have and still am practicing reporter, play-by-play and color analyst, reporter, kind of everything. I've even dabbed in production. Started out in 2002 just being a PA announcer for a high school. Somebody liked my voice and decided to have me just call out names at the basketball game. And some other people heard me, and I ended up being the voice of Clark Atlanta University for a while and Morehouse College for a while. Did some semi-pro stuff and some local stuff here in the Atlanta metro area. That's where I moved to after I left A&T. And so that's been a 20-year journey where I've been a beat reporter for the Atlanta Voice, where I covered, and y'all might not like this, where I covered Falcons football for a while.
All right, it was fun having you, Jamie. We're gonna end the show right there.
Tomatoes. I appreciate tomatoes.
No problem. But yeah, man. But the passion is definitely in HBCUs, man. Just doing that. And now I currently serve as a kind of utility guy for the Black College Sports Network, where I call games on that network along with the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, SIAC, and so kind of just dabbing in everything, man. Wherever I'm needed and wherever there's an opportunity, I'm always there. But the love is definitely with play-by-play in color.
Jamie, man, if I could ask you a quick question, you wouldn't happen to be Jamaican, huh?
I am not. No, not
okay.
Not Jamaican. Not Jamaican. Hey, listen.
Oh,
and I know where you're going, sir. No. I am not, but listen. But hey, I love their ambition. Love their ambition, though. Yes.
I love it, bro. I love it,
man. So you, first of all, you just state, so you vindicated, what I said when I said the sweet melodic voice, and you was like, hey, first thing you said, somebody liked my voice when I was announcing, and so so hey, I was right.
Yeah.
But first off, shout out to our girl, Miss Young Petty Murphy Jr. And then we got Miss Kristen. Hey, Kristen.
What's going on, Kristen?
What's up, Kristen?
Thank you for joining us. But okay, so you actually, how did you get started commentating? You told us that. I guess I'll jump into this. First question: what's the best HBCU game you've ever covered?
Wow, the best one I've ever covered, from an announcer standpoint, was actually probably 2 years ago. Morehouse and Clark Atlanta. Morehouse got out to a huge lead, and Clark Atlanta climbed their way back. So it was an exciting game from that standpoint because it was after COVID. They weren't able to play the game the year before. So it was one of those things where everybody was just ready to just explode. Clark Atlanta, I think, may have won one game before that game. And so coming in, everyone thought Morehouse was going to be, just run over Clark Atlanta because they won a winning streak of their own. And so Clark Atlanta ended up climbing back in the game. Now, the head coach at that time was Tim Bowens, who ended up losing his job at the end of the season, but the game itself was great. I actually was able to call that on ESPN3. So, ESPN Plus. So that was cool. That's probably the best game I've announced, for sure.
Jamie, have you had like one of those moments where you see the highlights when the announcers, the radio guys are going crazy? Have you had one of those yet?
Absolutely, man. That actually happened in a high school game. Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, where you just losing your mind. Everybody knows Gus Johnson and hollering and going crazy. I've had those moments too, man. It's the wildest thing ever. But you get so caught up in the game, and then depending on what somebody's announcing style is, they may lose it altogether. You've heard the greats kind of go at it, and so you lose your decorum and kind of just get into the game, but it's the greatest kind of announcing, man, when you can just be yourself.
Right.
What's the worst type of game to announce? Is it bad weather game, or is it the blowout where you got to try to keep the crowd entertained even though the game isn't that entertaining?
Blowouts, for sure. You looking for content and just looking for stuff to talk about. It's not but so much, hey, he scored, that you can kind of just go into or just talk about how great a team is. You want to even a pretty evenly matched contest to call just so you can kind of give both perspectives. And, even if you're calling for a certain school, like you're part of that network, it's only but so much bias you can give in a blowout game. So, yeah, definitely those are the worst.
I wanted to ask you a quick question, too. How hard is it? Let's say you're secretly, do you ever like cheer for a team, but you try not to let your bias show through your commentary?
Yeah, it's gonna show. Because crazy enough, last year I was Morehouse's PA announcer, but I was also doing play-by-play at the same time. So when you're hired by a school, of course you're going, your voice and just inflections and and your bias isn't going to go towards that school. But then I had to turn that off because I'm calling it for a network where I have to split, my allegiance. So yeah, it's definitely hard, man, trying to do that because you're like, yeah, more high scope. Oh, wait a minute, I'm back in my other job. So so yeah, for sure.
Got you.
Right. So I guess, Jamie, I guess we can jump right into it. North Carolina A&T. First of all, I'm gonna say this. I keep hearing, because I got a cousin that graduated from A&T. I talked to y'all. Y'all may have actually, been there at the same time. I keep hearing this is the greatest homecoming on earth.
It is. It is absolutely G.O. Yes, that is trademark, and it is ours. It is the greatest. We consider it the greatest homecoming on earth. Now, of course, I'm biased towards it, but
I was just about to say, I can hear some of that bias.
I was just about to say, because I got a cousin who went to Howard, and he tell me you ain't been to a homecoming until you been to a Howard homecoming.
I hear that from back in the day, man, and I can respect it. I know it's changed a lot, and they still, you got to look at DC and the way it's changed just demographically. So I don't know if it's still quite the same, but yeah, Howard has a claim for that too. And I've had some partners that's been there and said, hey, it's neck and neck, depending on what year one could take it, one, the other could too. So it just all depends. But we definitely love our homecomings at A&T.
Yeah. Mr. J. Harvey in the comments says Lane College. So I actually, y'all know it's always a connection. It's a small world. I think he's the I think he's the AD. The AD at Lane College, I can't think of his name, but he played football in high school with my dad.
Oh, okay.
No, your daddy know everybody. That's who knows about it.
Right. That's true. That is true.
I'll tell you some things about Lane, man. I mean, this should be their year in the SIAC. They've over the past 3 years, they've been able to really stack some, Coach Byron Brown and really his sons and a lot of people, they've recruited well and really have been able to do some things. You kind of saw their ascension last year where they could have possibly won their division, but, fell off and tailed at the end. So I'm looking for some big things. I think you're going to see some real good names and some emerging names come up in that conference this year.
Gotcha. Now, if I could ask too, real quick, what are your thoughts whenever it comes? We've had this conversation a lot on HBCU Hour about, the SWAC possibly joining. And Pooh, I hope I'm not going a completely different direction.
You are.
No, you're good. You're good.
We gonna get there. We're gonna get there.
My man. I'm gonna let Pooh go ahead. Pooh.
No, we're gonna get there because I think I know what you're talking about because that came up in conversation at SWAC Media Day. But before we get to the SWAC, I want to ask you this. A lot of teams seem to be leaving the MEAC for the CAA, Colonial Athletic Association. What is the appeal? Because I mean, from outside looking in, it's like, are they making more money? Are they, but I mean, numbers wise, it doesn't look like that. But what is the appeal of jumping to CAA?
It really depends on what your philosophy is in relation to where you want your conference or where you want your teams to go. Okay. Of course, the MEAC and the SWAC are tied to the Celebration Bowl. Mm-hmm. And so when it comes to whether or not your team wants to either enter the Celebration Bowl or go into the FCS playoffs, well, the MEAC is already tied into that. Whereas you saw the SWAC last year be able to both put a team in the Celebration Bowl and have a team in the playoffs. So that's one factor. But the CAA itself is regarded as probably the third or fourth best conference in FCS football. Now, that's primarily due to its past when they had teams like James Madison in, who's now jumped into FBS. Right. But they're still regarded whether, rightfully so, as one of the best conferences in FCS football. You can see the list of teams they have there, the Villanovas, the Delawares, teams of that nature that have been winners within the playoffs. And so philosophically, if you have a team that let's take, my school, for example. And I'm on the record, on a bunch of podcasts saying I never liked the move. I appreciate HBCU conferences. My time as a fan and a student, we were in the MEAC. But I understand our athletic director and president's, strategic plan in what they want to do as far as mixture of both being in the playoffs and advancing the Olympic sports. And they felt that the CAA would be a better fit. Now, depending on how you like your football, it could be a good move. Really, it's just a matter of opinion. We've taken a lot of flack. We've given a lot of flack when Hampton joined the CAA. Hampton joined the Big South, and then, of course, subsequently the CAA. So, A&T fans actually gave Hampton the business, and we got the same business when we jumped into the Big South. So, hey, spread the fairness around. But what I've said to people about it is, quite honestly, you have just a difference of what you want to be going forward as a football team. There were even some banter that when A&T decided to leave the Big South, or there was rumblings about really the Big South collapse. And I won't say they're gone yet, but you're talking about, another team's leaving. They're down to four football playing teams at this point. So A&T, had some meetings with the MEAC whether or not to come back. That wasn't in their strategic plan. They decided to take the offer from the CAA. So what makes it appealing is probably that. I think they talked about some academic mixtures when it comes to those institutions being Carnegie Research One institutions in that conference, and the fact that they're in that proximity with those institutions, even though Campbell is not the newest member that's going to the CAA. So I think it's a matter of really the historical perspective when it comes to the Colonial Athletic Association and teams wanting to be in there. But it's also, I've had this discussion with people when it comes to the culture and the difference of culture between the SWAC and the MEAC. And not saying that they are any better or one's better than the other, but they are different. They are very different. Any given Saturday in the SWAC, you gonna have crowds. The atmosphere is gonna be different. You gonna, and even when it's not attended as well, it's still in attendance. Whereas in the MEAC, there are rivalry games, and then there are games that's not going to draw the fanfare that you would think it does or it would. So in that regard, the attendance factor is not going to change especially for North Carolina A&T, because they're still playing the games that drew. They're still playing games with North Carolina Central. They're still playing games with South Carolina State. They're still playing games with Norfolk State. So they're still playing HBCUs, but one of their highest attended games was a game against CAA Elon College, Elon University now. I mean, it was Elon College when I was in school. So, and that game was almost sold out. It was packed. So the concept that it's the same or that you lose something in regards to being an HBCU, I think is not the case with North Carolina A&T. Again, I don't like it. I love the MEAC. I love what they represent. I love that brand of football. I love everything about it. But I don't think it was the end all be all when it came to them deciding for themselves, and I'm talking about North Carolina A&T and Hampton for that matter, to go to the CAA. I don't think it's better than the MEAC. I'm gonna just be honest with you, but that is from a football and HBCU conference standpoint when it comes to me.
Let me follow up with this. You mentioned that the MEAC and the SWAC are, vastly different in some areas. Do you think that part of that is because of the historical, the SWAC has been around for forever. Every team other than Bethune-Cookman, FAMU, and Alabama A&M have pretty much been in there since the 50s and the 60s. You know what I mean? Whereas the MEAC is not as old and doesn't have some of those same historical ties where you didn't have 8 generations of families, being it where there was a SWAC school. You know what I mean?
Before you answer that, because I kind of similar to what Ant was asking, I wonder if it's because although the MEAC, a lot of the teams are still what we call relative, below the Mason-Dixon. If it's because of they're more northern,
Deep South, they're not deep south,
deep south,
so to say.
I wonder if that's a fact. But go ahead and you can answer.
Nah, what you all are incorporating is exactly right. I think all of those are factors. You have to consider the fact that the MEAC branched out of the CIAA, so they were already in a, I guess you would call it progressive mode in branching off for different ideals. So it's not a thing of this is where we've been forever. They've always done this, and so even when it comes to football. Because a lot of times we use football as the litmus test when it comes to all things in when it comes to just ideas about sport. Well, the MEAC is also a basketball conference. You know what I'm saying? If you combine the MEAC and the CIAA, that mid-eastern seaboard, they feel a little different about football than, let's say, the Deep South. Football in the Deep South is religion. It just is. You know what I'm saying? You Saturdays, this is what you doing in the fall. Whereas, it's what you do in the fall in the Mid-Atlantic too, but basketball also has a heavy consideration. So yeah, all of those factors that y'all talked about are definitely those things, because the SWAC from its inception, what I'm saying, have lost teams too, but have always had a collective front when it comes to what they're doing. Along with that, you got to look at the way governments and the way it's been ran when it comes to being allowed to actually branch off and be able to structure your conference the way you do. The SWAC has had the historical point of being able to stick together because it hasn't been, much else due to just surroundings that you could do. So, the ideals of sticking together and being as one collective, I would say, is much deeper, only because if you look at the ways that, again, the MEAC started off as CIAA teams that grew into the MEAC. So you could kind of see where it branched off from there. But most definitely, the culture and historical significances are different.
So, Jamie, also with the MEAC, you said, is the MEAC more progressive than the SWAC? Is that what you're saying?
No, not at all.
No.
Not at all. No.
So I just want to make sure. So the SWAC,
no.
So the SWAC is a little bit more progressive than.
What I mean by progressive, in the sense of them wanting to do something different. That's why they didn't remain CIAA. They wanted to be because CIAA is a Division II conference. Right. They may have wanted to be Division I, decided these group of schools are gonna progress to this level. No, but saying the SWAC is less progressive than the MEAC, not at all. I think you have, especially when you're talking about the modern era, I think the SWAC schools have been able to stick to each other and have done and made moves for the preservation of the conference, more so than other teams or other conferences.
Yeah, just like Dr. McClellan said, when looking at like the expansion of the conference realignment and some of those things, they were kind of at the forefront of that when going and getting FAMU and Bethune-Cookman. They did that 2-3 years ago before all these other conferences even started looking at it. So the SWAC is progressive in not every sense. Obviously, there's always room for improvement, but for the most part, as a conference, they are progressive and forward thinking.
Absolutely.
Speaking of that, at MEAC Media Day, I believe it was at Media Day, the MEAC commissioner, Sandra Seals, she shot down the rumors of a HBCU Super Conference with SWAC and MEAC joining. I think, well, I ain't gonna say
what would be the reason for her shooting that down? I mean, how could it hurt?
I think when you're combining anything, you're losing some of your staff.
Sure.
And so I think the preservation of her conference, she was handed, this thing. Now, I think Dr. Dennis Thomas didn't necessarily hand her something that was already running a fine-tuned machine. Yeah. I think coming into this, she knew that she was going to have an uphill battle. I don't think she anticipated what kind of battle with people coming to poach her teams. But this has happened over the last 10 years. Look at how many teams have actually been lost and decided to go back to, even going back to Winston-Salem State and Savannah State, going back to Division II, you're talking about, North Carolina Central, you're talking about, teams that have been, rumored to go to other conferences, and, them just holding those 8, the Elite 8 that she speaks of so highly. The work that she's done has been to dispel rumors of, people going to other places. Now, you could call it rumor if you want to, but where there's smoke, there's fire. I guarantee you. I guarantee you, I can't say for sure. As a reporter, I would never say there's a guarantee. But I almost guarantee can reassure you that somebody offered another school and said, here's the opportunity to come to this conference. And they may have turned it down, not wanting to be that, that last death nail per se. But, when it comes to her shooting down, that kind of address the question, I think it's really just pride and just, quite honestly, in certain ways, the super conference ideal would be conceding that we need this help in the MEAC. And,
good point.
Not just that, somebody gonna have to lose a job, as you already said. And
well, I'll kind of take the other angle. Even if they were working on, the super conference ideal, you never show your hand. You know what I mean? You never. Yeah, exactly. So you know, I don't think that's going to be the case. And while you're in back rooms trying to get it done, that way once it's done, you kind of have that fact that surprise factor, that wow factor, and everybody's not expecting it to happen. So if you already are starting to talk about it, then TV networks are already starting to figure out, okay, well, how much am I going to offer them? What is that deal worth? And all these kind of things. But if they don't know anything about it, you kind of have the leverage on them whenever you come to the negotiating table.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna tell you what, she has not been, and she made a statement when A&T was kind of in the midst of transition from the Big South to the CAA. And one of the things that was said was, she said, we don't have to assimilate to white conferences to be relevant. I'm paraphrasing what she said with that. And she is true to a degree. It's just the timing was was different. Okay. She's right. But at the same time, A&T wasn't the only team that left. Even when it comes to, FAMU and when it comes to Bethune-Cookman. Now, I've been on the record saying this too. I think it is the perfect move. FAMU and Bethune-Cookman belong in the SWAC. They do. They belong in the SWAC. The culturally, and I'm not just talking about sports. I'm talking about band culture. I'm just talking about areas. It fits perfectly. So it was, never a matter of that not happening. But they lost those teams too. But Hampton and A&T seems to be getting, the flack for essentially ending the MEAC, which is, ludicrous in certain ways. But other teams have left that conference. So what does it tell you?
Yeah,
other folks aren't pleased.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing. Our producer says, ask Jamie, does he read the dictionary often with words like assimilate? No,
I don't read it often. It was literally taking her quote. Taking her quote. No.
Okay.
And my daughter want to know if you know how to explain all them big words you're using, though.
Yes, I do. Yes. Yes, I do for the most part. I'll break it down a little bit more. You don't have to jump to white conferences to accomplish your goals.
All right, speaking of that, I want to kind of flip that a little bit. There's been some, I don't want to say rumors, but discussion of possibility of maybe some PWI conference schools joining either the MEAC or the SWAC. What is the likelihood of that in your opinion?
I think at this point, based on location, they have no choice. This is not the Big Ten. You can take a UCLA and a USC and bring them to the Midwest. We're talking about, teams and conferences that have to have travel and money as a consideration. So at this point, you're either looking for D2s looking to move up to D1, or you're looking for, there's already a PWI in the CIAA in Shawan. So, in that area, you have some schools that have the footprint and possibility of being able to move into the conference. That may not be, it's not your traditional HBCU, but you're going to have to do something. You already have an alliance for your baseball teams that remain playing in the NEC, the Northeast Conference. So, you're going to have to do something. And she's talked about the ways that she wants them back into the MEAC. So, she's going to have to, and really that brain trust who has some great people around them. Like, don't get me wrong. That structure, what I've always told people is I hate that she's having to work uphill, because I think she's a dynamic person. I think she has some outstanding ideas and things she wants to do, but she got hit with a brick from the outset in trying to just keep your teams together with other folks poaching. It's just, Dr. Kenyatta Cavill, somebody I work with on Black College Sports Network, talks about how conference churning has always happened, but it just seems like it's so prevalent here, and just because of how the structure of college football is going. So, we'll see.
Right.
We'll see what she does.
So, we kind of talked about some of the differences in the SWAC and MEAC. One difference that came out that people it was a huge deal. The difference in the
It was a huge deal to some.
The difference in the setup for the SWAC Media Day and the MEAC Media Day, which you were at both of them, am I correct? I know you were. Okay. The SWAC had, a tarp up. Nice set. It wasn't like, you're not gonna walk in there and be wild, blown away. But it wasn't trash. But MEAC had, I guess, digital screens and stuff. And why is this a big deal?
It wasn't. The irony is they both had the same setups 2 years in a row. It's just that you have more people covering it now. That's all. And just make, making, I guess, I always take the jokes and the funniness out of certain stuff. Like, I love a good laugh. There's nothing wrong with it. But at the end of the day, they both had the same setup from the year before. I was at SWAC Media Days last year, and it was the exact same format and setup. The only difference was it was more media. It had the radio room. Yeah. It had the room that we all were in as for if you were streaming a video, and then of course the main room. I didn't go to MEAC Media Days last year. Matter of fact, I'm not even sure if they had one. But yeah, of course they did. Say it was the same setup last year. But yeah, I didn't even go, and so I saw some pictures and things of that nature, and it was the exact same setup, except the graphics were a little bit different for the MEAC. But otherwise, no one made a big deal out of it the year before. It was just, hey, a topic that people were interested in.
All right. So, Dr. McClellan mentioned that at SWAC Media Day, all the celebration bowls, I think it's been 10 or so. I can't remember the exact number, but the SWAC has only won one.
Shout out Grambling,
the only school to win. That won with Kincaid at quarterback. I remember that. Beat NCCU. No, if I'm was
it was Central. Yeah, I was there.
Yeah.
Can we just put a pin in that point whenever we want to say that Jackson State doing things that no other SWAC school has done before? I just want to put a pin in that one. Go ahead.
All right. Is the MEAC being slept on? Because we've kind of North Carolina A&T.
Well, last year they won the MEAC SWAC Challenge and they won the Celebration Bowl. So it's been like that for a few years now. So
if I'm not mistaken, with the Celebration Bowl and the MEAC SWAC Challenge, I think MEAC is up like 16-5, something like that. So
I think there is some sleeping of the conference, but I think it's timing. You really can't explain it. I get into arguments with people about the difference in football. I think you have high-flying offenses in the SWAC. I think you have, really, great ground games and being able to defend the pass. And I think in the MEAC, it's a little bit different. It gets cold up there in November, December, and you got to go get some big boys and run the football. And so I think the styles are a little bit different, and styles make the fight oftentimes. Although, I was at the MEAC SWAC last year, and it was just amazing to see North Carolina Central do what they do, or do what they did to Alcorn last year, because it was totally unexpected. That wasn't a Central team, but Davis Richard, who's returning this year at quarterback for North Carolina Central, played a heck of a game. And so I was just surprised to see how that happened, because you're talking about Felix Harper, who was, second-year starter, coming back to, with that ball club, and really they were loaded on offense and defense. It was surprising to see Central take it to him. So, explaining that one was hard and trying to analyze it. But do I think the MEAC has their number? I think the MEAC has a major chip on its shoulder and feels like they're always disrespected. So they come into those games feeling that way. I know South Carolina State did in the Celebration Bowl, and said, "Oh, okay," because even though they're closer to Atlanta, all the coverage was skewed in their eyes to Jackson State. And Jackson State got all the love. Jackson State got all the celebrities telling them good luck, go ahead and win the game. And South Carolina State said, okay, no problem. We're gonna go ahead and do what we do. And again, in the Buddy Pugh system, he's been there 20 plus years. South Carolina State continues to do what they do.
I gotta find out if we related.
That's your cousin. You just don't.
I'm gonna have to get him. I'm gonna hit him up like Lucky cousin. Well, go ahead, Dane.
Well, I was listening to what you were saying, Jamie, about kind of like the play of the MEAC and the play of the SWAC, and just thinking about the PWIs and how they play football when it comes to Big Ten football, and then it comes to the SEC. You got a lot of those schools that are high flying in the SEC and the Big 12, and then whenever Ohio State, Michigan, a lot of those teams power I formation. Maybe not so Ohio State, but Michigan State. So just listening to those and those similarities of, I guess it's because of the weather.
Oh, it is absolutely similar. Like that's a great parallel. Because you're not gonna see Morgan State throw the ball all around the field come November, December up in Baltimore. You're not gonna see Howard throw it all around the DC when that temperature hitting 35 and 40 degrees. You're not gonna see a lot of what you're gonna see, even though it's in the dome in the Celebration Bowl. So it's just a different brand of football, but just the reliance on in how they recruit is a little bit different. But it's hard for me to say. I guess this is where it's dissimilar. It's hard for me to say that there's a toughness factor, quote unquote, that's a little bit different. It's just a different style of football, because I beg you to turn and say who's better offensively or with size or whatever. I think all of the teams in the SWAC are trying to get quality linemen, but if you look, the quarterbacks are able to run. You get really good passing of the football. I guess even with Jackson State last year, they were able to run the football in spurts, but that running game didn't give them what they needed, really, I would say, the last 3 ball games, even though Peyton Pickett had a good game in the SWAC championship game.
And real quick, Jamie, I don't know if our producer's being pretty petty, but he said, ask Jamie who is winning the Bayou Classic and why is it not Graham?
Oh man,
y'all so disrespectful.
I'll tell you what, man. Hugh Jackson has recruited well, man, and I tell you what, he's gotten them back in eye shot of recruits, and so even between that and the transfer portal, if they can get a quality signal caller, I told somebody this at SWAC Media Days, they're my dark horse in the West.
Well, John Simons has been around, a long time in college football and caused some high flying offenses in his day. So I'm not sleeping on him. But I would say this though, while y'all talking about Grambling, go do y'all research. They got a winning record against everybody in the SWAC.
Yeah.
So y'all can talk about them being dookie all you want to, producers, but y'all got a long way to go before y'all pass Grambling in that win-loss.
Hey, you the story. Look, he mad.
I got defend. Don't nobody defend Gremlin on the show. So leave it to the 318 got to do it. But let me ask you this though. You said the MEAC is kind of slept on a little bit, and they don't necessarily get the same recognition as the SWAC. Do you think that goes back to kind of some of the historical references of the SWAC and how they have some of the biggest brands in HBCU football with Grambling, Eddie Robinson, and Walter Payton at Jackson State, and some of the names that came. I'm not saying that the MEAC and some of those other HBCUs don't have big names that came through there, but Grambling's got tons of Hall of Famers, so like is that part of the reason?
Oh, that's absolutely the reason. When you're talking about, and I think the HBCU Classic that everybody sees on TV, that doggone Bayou Classic, man. Look, that was in the homes of America. So when it comes to even just those two teams putting the SWAC on the map, hey, the MEAC doesn't have that kind of game. So when it comes to the brands of Southern, Grambling, and Jackson State, you're talking about definitely brand recognition that I would beg to say more people know in mainstream America than any team in the MEAC at this point.
Yeah.
Jamie, also, would you say HBCUs right now, as far as the branding and the image of it, has it ever been as big as it is now?
Boy, yeah.
I'm just thinking. When it comes to TV deals,
maybe not in your lifetime, but at one point in time, yes, sir.
Yeah, I know it was bigger, but I'm go ahead.
I think in early integration and definitely before, yes,
yeah, of course,
absolutely,
right.
In the modern era,
like the 80s, 90s, yeah, 2000s. Is it making a comeback? Yeah,
it is. Are you talking just football, or are you talking about HBCU branding as a whole?
I'm talking as a whole. HBCU branding.
I think the 90s might have had it because in the 90s you had Will Smith and Martin rocking HBCUs on everything. You had HBCU, and everywhere you saw somebody was rocking a Southern. Howard, whatever, Living Single, all the shows.
I still wear my resurgence of that too.
I still wear my Hillman shirt.
But it's nowhere near to the same level as it was back then. Like it's not there yet, in my opinion.
It's I guess it's getting to that point. You could even take it back to the Cosby Show. Like you would see him rocking a Wilberforce shirt, Hampton, Howard, you know what I'm saying? You would see that. So I think regardless of how we feel about him today, that was the thing. But I think when it comes to, and we just have to call it, Deion Sanders entering this space has brought attention or eyes that probably wouldn't have normally been there to the space. Now I think where it goes from there, and really the proof of the emergence of the brand will happen when he leaves. If those same eyes are still there, hey, you got something going. But I still say ride this wave, and we'll see what happens with it.
I mean, what do you do to capitalize off of it? I mean, if you're a HBCU school that's not capitalizing off, the Deion Sanders effect.
But you are in a way.
But I mean, you got some people that don't even have social media pages.
This is the dilemma with all of this, because along with as good as he has been for branding of HBCUs or HBCU brands, along with that, he is putting magnifying glasses on other teams.
Right.
And you're talking about one of the greatest self-promoters there has ever been in Deion Sanders. I'm talking about from his days collegiately up until just professional, and even more so. Being able to capitalize that for a team he's coaching, and then everything they've done. There's not a day you don't see them on social media. There's not a day whether it's his own brand and he's featuring Jackson State, or his son are doing something, whether they're on a campus party. Everything that they're doing right now is just magnifying HBCUs, and it is the perfect way to do it because it's free. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Outside of the extra crews that he has, I'm just talking about just the apps. If you take the time and a 5-minute so-and-so, film of what you got going on campus, it's perfect. And so it's just one of those things that he is causing everybody to step up. And if you're not,
bingo,
you see that instantly.
But that's what I'm saying. So everybody's capitalizing in a way, because even if you aren't at the level he is now, you're trying to catch up to where he's at. And we was at SWAC media days, and there was an SID who told me, man, we can't let Jackson State outdo us. You know what I mean? And that's their mindset when it comes to everything. You know what I mean? Recruiting, branding, exposure. You know what I mean? So
Fashion.
exactly. So if that's their mindset when it comes to all of that, then they have no choice but to make themselves better. So they're capitalizing off of it. It might not be instantaneous, but they're in the long run, they're capitalizing off of that. But let me ask you this. Because of the spotlight and the awareness that Dion has put on HBCUs, if he doesn't win the SWAC this year, if they don't eventually win the Celebration Bowl, does that hurt the SWAC and does that hurt HBCUs? Because it almost all that good momentum he's been building, it kind of knocks the luster off of that program a little bit if they don't win, especially with Travis Hunter and the expectations they have now.
I think it does some, but I also think other things outside of that, such as if they get players into the NFL, would kind of balance that out some. I think the publicity and what you can do as a player. Just think about how Travis Hunter is being featured for that program. If you're a 5-star that was even thinking about going somewhere else and had HBCU in mind and said, nah, I think I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna get more pub. Where you're seeing that, hey, Travis Hunter's always on the news. Jackson State is always involved in something, and that's on purpose. They're the hot name. So I think, them not finishing, the drill, so to speak, winning the Celebration Bowl or getting in the playoffs and advancing, I think eventually that would have to be something they do because, Dion, Coach Prime has said himself, he wants to dominate. And so if he's getting these players in and doesn't, I think it would say something to some people. But I also think if he's able to get, because think about this for a second. Nobody was drafted from the University of Texas.
Yep.
No one was drafted from, I think about that and think about what Texas was as a program, and Jackson State had players drafted over the University of Texas. So if Coach Prime is still able to do that, put players in the league, I think, not being in the Celebration Bowl doesn't hurt you as much as you would think, considering.
So you mentioned 5 stars coming in and seeing what the exposure Travis Hunter's getting. Jackson State made the final 5 or 6 for a highly touted offensive lineman. I'm not saying he's going to end up there, but what will it take for Jackson State? Because we know Travis Hunter, #1 player in the country and all that, but a lot of people will say, oh, he went to get coached by the best cornerback to ever do it. What will it take for a defensive lineman or offensive tackle like this young man we're talking about?
Mr. Miles McVay, that we're talking about.
What will it take for them to get 5 stars in the trenches like that?
Well, see, that's what I'm talking about as far as the difference in football and styles when it comes to what they are. Coach Prime has always mentioned, somebody said, were they ever ready to play Alabama? He said no. Mm-hmm. He said because we don't have the trench players to compete with them, and he's exactly right.
He said he gonna have to give me 2 years.
Exactly. 2 years. I think Coach Prime, I think, can sell water, sell ice to an Eskimo. You know what I'm saying? So I think as he continues to grow in this space and be able to feature players, I think it will take him a while to go get those offensive linemen, offensive and defensive linemen, because quite honestly, that is the missing element. If you look at Alabama, if you look at those perennial winners in the FBS space, the difference is those trench players. Everybody's got receivers. You can find people that can run and catch, but can you find those big uglies that will go play and hit somebody on a consistent basis? And that's why those teams, those Georgias, those Alabamas succeed, because they get, they recruit and over recruit that position. You know what I'm saying? You got a team that had 4 or 5 people in the first round. You know what I'm talking about in Georgia. So if he can get half of that in offensive and defensive linemen, I ain't just talking about draft picks. I'm just talking about the amount of recruits. Oh, Jackson State would dominate. It'd be no question.
Yeah, we mentioned it on here not too long ago, the Arizona Grambling game when Kincaid got hurt and Grambling would have won that game if it wasn't for that. That was one of the few times where a SWAC school had outweighed the D1 school on offensive defensive lines because of the transfers and stuff that they had in the trenches. So I agree with you to that point that it's going to take the trenches, but I think it's going to take more than 2 years because it's not you don't just need 5 offensive linemen. You need 7, 8 offensive linemen because that's how Bama beat you. That's the difference between Bama and even LSU. Bama has 12 offensive line, LSU has 6. You know what I mean? And the depth is where they get you. So I think he's a little optimistic saying 2 years, unless he can get some high quality transfers to come in at that position. But I think
it changes the game, man.
It does, absolutely. But that's the thing. Are you gonna get 7 offensive linemen in the transfer portal in one class?
It's possible.
That 7, 5, 4, 5 stars in one class.
7, 4. Well, when you say 4, 5 stars,
that's the type.
Different.
But that's the type of offensive lineman that you're gonna have to compete against those type of schools. You can't keep taking 2, 3 stars and running them out there against Bama. You're gonna have to get the Miles McVay 4 or 5 star types and get those guys in numbers.
I think whenever it comes to coaching, developing, if you find those kids, those diamonds in the rough, I think you can develop them. Of course, you can't develop 7, 4, 5 stars, but you can develop a right guard. You know what I'm saying?
I feel you. But you can do that for 1 or 2 guys. You can't do that for a team full of offensive linemen.
Also, we talked about a couple episodes ago the reason why Jackson State and a lot of HBCUs are looking more for the transfer portal is because they can't afford to develop anymore. Yep. They have to have them right now, and to win, especially
to keep up with Dion and what
to
he's
keep
doing.
up with yeah, exactly. And Dion's not. See, here's the thing that we not really
Dion
talking
ain't
about.
the only one.
Yeah, he's not the only one, but everybody's trying to keep up with Dion. Dion's trying to keep up with. He's trying to move Power 5. He's trying to keep up with them. And it's like it's chest to checkers. I mean,
and it's making everybody up their game. If you look at what Alabama
produce a better brand.
If you look at Alabama A&M's doing and all the transfer and Alabama State and all the transfers they got, Alcorn, like G told us, they zigged when everybody else zagged, and they went and got like 20 JUCO guys.
They had to.
But they'll still be able to play and help them quicker than 20 high school guys would. You see what I'm saying? So
go ahead. Even in A&M's case, you know what I'm saying, they had to. If you look at A&M's schedule, they getting beat on from the rip. So they had to transform their entire defense, because even though they could score with the best of them, they could give up points with the best of them too. So they had to hit that portal.
And you ain't got Mr. Amazing back to quarterback. So you really gonna need defense this year.
All right. So I want to kind of revisit something we talked about. You talked about Travis Hunter and the attention he's getting. The FCS Pre-season All-American list came out. There are 10 HBCU players on it. The theme of SWAC versus MEAC is in play here. There are 9 SWAC players, 1 MEAC player. Those players on the first team: Isaiah Land from Florida A&M, Jamari Sharif from Florida A&M. On the second team, you had Kamari Everett from Bethune-Cookman. That's a massive human being.
That's an NFL tight end. That's an NFL tight end right there for sure.
Yeah. He is also, since we're talking about transfer, he started out at Louisville. So Jablonski, I hope I'm not messing that up. Jablonski Green from South Carolina State. Jordan Lewis, Jablonski Green, that is your 1 MEAC on the second team. Jordan Lewis from Southern, Isaiah Bolden from Jackson State. On third team, you had Abdul-Fatai Ibrahim from Alabama A&M. You had Xavier Smith from Florida A&M. You had Mark Evans from UAPB, and you had Travis Hunter from Jackson State. Now, a lot of people were I ain't gonna say upset. A lot of people kind of made comments about Travis Hunter hadn't played the game, and he's already third team. All-American, FCS All-American. And they were kind of making, how is this? They're hyping him up too fast. They LeBron in him. They crowning him before he's done anything. And is this kind of jealousy? Is it, is there truth to this? What do y'all think?
Well, for me, it's putting a huge target on his back. I'll say that from the rip. But I think he's facing phenomenal players every day in practice. So I think he'll be all right in relation to that. But what people don't consider is this happens in basketball all the time with incoming freshmen.
Exactly.
Yep. So even though you would ask, would you put somebody on the third team that, hadn't played a down in college football yet? Or, you saw the spring game and you see the potential, even though it's a glorified scrimmage. You see the potential there. But I could see both sides of the argument.
Mm-hmm.
I can see both sides of the argument. I don't think it's one that's greater than the other.
My thing is in a way it's a prediction of what you expect to happen in the upcoming season.
Precisely.
So I don't see anything wrong with them predicting or projecting him to be All-American. But my thing is, you said expectations, and to the people who are saying it puts and now it does, but I will say that isn't putting any more expectations on him than being the number one player at HBCU does.
That was gonna be my
so
point.
Honestly, the kid, as soon as he committed and signed that line and went to Jackson State, he had enormous expectations and pressure. So this isn't changing that in it at all. Honestly, I think by them putting it on the third team, it kind of helps those expectations because he doesn't have to live up to first team expectations.
Mm-hmm.
So in a sense, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And honestly, I don't see what the big fuss is about.
And I agree 100% with your point. I would even go back to him being in high school. You know what I'm saying? Kid was the number one player in the nation.
Yeah.
He's had a target on his back every football game probably since his junior, sophomore year of high school.
That's true.
So I think he's probably used to the pressure. And, hey, pressure, it makes diamonds or it busts pipes. So
you're gonna find out sooner or later,
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, speaking of preseason projection lists, there are 12 HBCU players that are on the Senior Bowl projections. Mm-hmm. And some of these names overlap. You got Sonnyata Anderson from Grambling. You got Kamari Everett from Bethune-Cookman. You got BJ Bowler from Florida A&M, Jablonski Green from South Carolina State, Esaias Guthrie from Delaware State, John Huggins from Jackson State, Jordan Lewis from Southern, Mark Pope from Jackson State, and Joshua Pryor from Bowie State.
I'm just glad to see, double-digit HBCU schools. That's kind of letting me, and that's just preseason. So that doesn't mean there's other guys that won't be added to the roster, based off their performance this year. But the fact that you see that many before the season starts lets you know that there are more and more eyes on HBCU football.
Yeah, definitely. And we know how big the Senior Bowl is. I mean, that's a pretty big deal.
Absolutely.
Especially for the draft process.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes. All right. Return back to Travis Hunter. So, I guess he didn't necessarily get the $1 million to not go to Florida State, but he did sign an NIL deal with Greenwood Bank. That is the black-owned bank founded by Killer Mike. I want to say Jesse Williams, and then there's another.
Yeah, he got to find someone to put that $1 million, man.
Oh, that's true.
Hey.
That's true. Sticking with Jackson State, Coach Tamika Reed continues to do great things. After the third straight SWAC championship, she and her team will be playing in the preseason women's NIT tournament.
Great exposure.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, and I think with what she did in the tournament, what her team did in the tournament, you're looking at someone that's going to be a hot candidate. If they do anything in that NIT, I mean, she already has, you know, the Google eyes of America already. You know, she's about to be featured some more. So we're going to see what the next step is with her. But she talked about the ways that she wanted to knock walls down for HBCUs. So to continue that advancement, we're going to see. But somebody's going to throw a whole lot of money at her eventually.
They're going to have to. Kim Mulkey said it. Hey, y'all better pay her. You know, I know it was kind of, you know, when she, the time, oh, I ain't going to say the time. When she said it, it was kind of, you know, I think everybody, you know, understood what she's saying, but it was kind of, but I mean, she didn't lie.
Her intentions were pure, but the words and the way it came out might not have been the best. But she meant well.
It's true, man. People get offended by everything, man. She's speaking facts. Pay her.
It wasn't the fact that she said pay her. She said pay her or she ain't gonna be around long.
That's true.
So, like she too good to be at Jackson. She could have just said pay the woman. You know what I mean? And that would have been nut. But like we said, it's the way she worded the shit.
Yeah. There are 28 players invited to the inaugural HBCU showcase at the NBA 2K23. I put 2K34 on here.
I seen it. I was like,
I seen that, and I was like, hey, maybe they're inviting 34 players. Like, 34,
I was typing too fast. NBA 2K23 Summer League in Las Vegas. Hey, I praise the Lord if I see 2034. I'll be happy. I'll be happy that there and beyond. So
let's pump the brakes a little bit before we get there, though. You know, that's y'all trying to make me faulty. Chill out, Pooh. Pooh over there like carry the one.
I was thinking, I was like, dang, 2034, man. My son will be my baby will be graduated.
And it's 14.
Yeah, right. Time don't stand still, man. Especially when you talk about kids.
Oh, dang! You said that's 14 years.
Yeah, 2030.
You need to go back to school, bro.
Yeah, it's 2022, not that. So that'll be.
Oh snap! I'm tripping.
All right,
it's
late game.
It's 9:19.
I want to say this.
Check this out.
Precious said he said you look like a professor today.
Not a math professor. That's what
can be deceiving.
Hey,
you trying to take us back to 2020. Look, that was a rough year for us. We do not need to go back, bro.
All right. So I got a couple quick hitters before I got some actual thought-provoking questions. The SIAC named a new league commissioner, Mr. Anthony Holloman. Congratulations to him. I didn't look up his background or anything, but you know, congratulations to him. SIAC is I always think every time I think of SIAC, I think of Tuskegee and Miles. Always.
Yeah.
Then Stillman, and then I mean it's just
Dr. Holloman. Yeah, Dr. Holloman is going to be good for the conference. He's worked. I think he's coming from Fort Valley now. His work at Tuskegee. Really, really good name. And he's going to come in there with some innovation. So look forward to that.
Yeah. Daniel, to get back, you were asked something earlier, or you were talking about it. SWAC Commissioner Dr. Charles McClellan. I think we talked about this after the SWAC Media Day. He was named the chair of the D1 NCAA Basketball Committee. And I want to apologize to everybody listening. We actually have a clip from SWAC Media Day. He's talking about his vision for expanding the SWAC, and he's looking to. Right now, I think he says it's a bylaw that a whole conference can't go from FCS to FBS, but he's looking for them to be in the FBS. What did he say?
He said 10 years, I think. So by 2030, I believe is what he said. Because he said right now the way the conferences as a whole, as far as revenue and stuff like that, they're one of the highest FCS, and then in 5 years they should be the highest FCS and should be surpassed some FBS conferences. And then in 10 years, they should be even further along. But by that time, they look on trying to be an FBS conference themselves. So we'll see. That obviously they had to change that bylaw, for them to be able to do that. But I think one of the more interesting things he said was when they asked him about conference expansion, he said like they'll always take calls and they'll always be interested, but they're not going to expand just for the sake of expanding. And, and I think that's because the way Dr. McClellan has kind of moved with the SWAC and kind of got them as one of the the HBCU conference, so to say. You don't need to just add teams just to say, oh, we got to keep up with what the SEC is doing, or we got to keep up with what the Big Ten's doing. They like he mentioned, every major HBCU from Texas to Florida is in the SWAC. So unless you want to go try to get North Carolina A&T and South Carolina State and just say, every major Southern HBCU, but I don't know if that's worth it. You know what I mean? To kind of jeopardize what you have already have built and the product that you already have just to expand for the sake of expanding.
Hold on, before Leah says, why is Aaron in comments so quiet? It's because they glued. We got everybody's attention. We got them glued.
she just wants some company, probably.
Like and comment.
All right. Hey, HBCU players in the NFL, in NFL camps, making some big noise. If I'm not mistaken, several have already signed multi-year contracts. I know what's the guy? Jacoby Durant, if I'm not mistaken.
With the Rams. He's been balling with the Rams.
Yeah, and
got Joshua Williams over there in
Kansas City.
And Jatira Carter been getting some first team reps also.
Yeah.
Thinking the Bears, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he's with the Bears.
Yeah, so hey, like we always said, you cannot hide talent.
No, you can't
hide talent. So Trey Fisher, son of Jimbo Fisher, is leaving University of Tennessee Martin and heading to FAMU. He is now listed as a quarterback at FAMU right now.
Hey, that boy about to go get that Stetson Bennett fade as soon as he.
Hey, Stetson Bennett, that fade, I don't know where he went, but I'm telling you, that boy throwing for 5,072 touchdowns.
That's
hey, the funniest thing I saw, somebody said Staquavius Bennett.
Oh God.
All right. Oh man, aka Staquavius. Yeah, that's it. All right.
His name, he's Stetson Bennett the fourth, huh? When he got his face like that, you gotta call him Quad because he can't go by Stetson. He just
All right. Former Alabama State Hornet wide receiver, great and head coach Reggie Barlow was named the coach of the XFL's DC team. I don't think they've actually named the actual team with the mascot or anything yet, but he has been tabbed as that head coach. I know he had stints at Alabama State, then I think he was at Virginia State after that. So congratulations to him.
Wait, he coaching where?
The XFL's DC team, the Washington DC team.
Okay. Oh, I know what that mascot ain't gonna be, but
yeah. So, all right. Other than Shedeur, Travis, and Isaiah, Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, and Isaiah Land, who is a player you look forward to watching this year in the HBCU?
You know what? And it's funny. He's kind of flying under the radar. Gary Quarles.
Ooh, listen. I asked him on media day just because I wanted to give him something different. I was like, "Hey, what's the best wing spot?" And he just started rattling. He rattled off the name. We had a conversation. Hey, that young man, he literally is flying under the radar. He's small in stature, but if you watch his highlights, I ain't gonna say look. That dude can move.
Yeah,
that dude can move.
Looking forward to seeing what he's gonna do in this new offense. Because if Quincy Casey is gonna be their quarterback, then they're not gonna be as pass happy. I don't think. So I think you'll see some more stuff with Gary Quarles.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm gonna go with the big man, the big tight end from Bethune-Cookman, Mr. Kavari Everett. Whenever we saw that man at Sweat Media, you could just look at him and like, oh yeah, he different from everybody.
He belong. I know where you belong. I know he gonna be at next.
And he belongs on the basketball court with his big old tail. Like he a power forward for somebody.
Yes.
But honestly, like
6'6"? Did they say he's 6'6"?
Yeah, man, that bet 6'8". I don't care what
He a
nobody say.
Kevin Durant 6'6".
Yeah,
He's all of it.
But
Yeah.
he with his frame, you know, and the way he can, you know, move the double teams he commands and stuff like that. I think he's in for a big season. But like he said, you know, he talked a little noise at media days. He's like, y'all doubled me last year. I got some more weapons with me this year. Y'all ain't gonna be able to just double and triple me all year. So I expect him to put up big numbers, but also I want to see, you know, how his game translates to the next level. I want to see what it looks like as a blocker and some of those other things. Because I really think he could play on Sundays.
Yeah,
I know.
I would say for my pick, Jason Dumas, hometown kid from Vassar, 5'10", 280, short in stature, kind of remind me of myself. You know what I'm saying? But
hopefully he plays this year.
So he not good.
If he reminds you of yourself, hopefully he plays this year.
I was an All-American when I was sleeping. But anyway,
oh boy, intramural.
Hey, All-American is All-American, all right. But nah, man, yeah, shout out
campus.
to Dumas, man.
Well,
and
they got a couple of defensive linemen over there at Southern.
Yeah.
Jordan Lewis also, who expecting big things from.
All right. So I actually had kind of two, Kamari Everett, and then Gary Quar's teammate, Abdul-Fatai Ibrahim.
Yeah, Ibrahim.
Yeah, he had 1,000 last year, and they asked him this year, "What you gonna do?" He said
1,500.
1,500. Well, he said somebody said you gonna do 1,500. He said, "Shoot, that's more than 1,000. I'm gonna do it."
Yeah. Hey, you wanna know what? The way I worded that question, I worded it for a reason, because I mentioned Shador, and I mentioned Travis and Isaiah Land. Why ain't nobody say Shiloh?
Nobody ever does. I'm gonna walk away on that one.
I mean, he preseason all SWAC, you know, defensive first team, so he ain't a scrub, you know. But
no.
I just want to know why nobody ever really talks about him. You know,
if I'm not mistaken, when Jackson State played, I forget who it was that they played.
Is he had the personality of his brother and his dad?
He's a little bit more reserved. He's a little bit more quiet.
Would that be the reason why?
No, I mean that has nothing to do with watching him play. You know what I mean? And the talent level he brings.
I forget who they were playing, but Shador scored the touchdown to put them up, and Shiloh caught the interception to seal the game. Yeah. So
the kid can ball. He just don't never get talked about.
Southern, if I'm not mistaken, one of the.
It might have been Southern.
Sealed it. But I don't know. I think Shiloh might be that kid that just kind of shies away from the limelight. Like he just, low key, if he's in it, but he not looking for it, you know what I'm saying? That kind of deal. So,
I can see that.
All right. What's the tougher division of the SWAC? East or West? Let's so on the let me pull up so I can make sure I don't mess this up. So on the East, I know you got
Jackson.
You got Alabama State. I'm thinking about like looking at the room. Alabama State, Alabama A&M, Alabama State, Bethune, FAMU, Jackson, Mississippi Valley State. On the West, you got Alcorn,
GS,
Grambling, Southern, Texas Southern, and UAPB.
Prairie View. Yeah.
And Prairie View, I'm sorry.
I'll say this. I think that the East is more top heavy, and I think the West is more it's anybody's game type. You know what I mean? Anybody could be anybody for the most part. But if you take the top three, you got FAMU, Alabama A&M, and Jackson. Other than that, you got them it's kind of them three, and then it's kind of everybody else. For the most part in the East. If you look in the West, it's Alcorn win it 1 year, Grambling win it 1 year, Southern win it 1 year. You know what I mean? And it's anybody can kind of beat anybody.
Look, I'm saying it here. Jackson State about to take over. Give me the East.
Jackson State might not even win the East.
Give me the East.
Ooh,
give me the East.
I like that. I'll say the East because if Bethune can do anything, I think the rest of them kind of shake out as well. And Valley's not necessarily a tough out. I mean, a easy out anymore. Either. You know what I'm saying? So Bethune was tough for some, and they gave some people a game. If they do any kind of improving, I think the East could be tougher overall. I know, and I agree with what you said about them being top heavy, but it just all depends on what those bottom tier teams do. I'm not sure Alabama State and Bethune right now. Them the only two wild cards for me.
I want to see what Coach Robinson does. Yeah. I really do. If his players got the same demeanor as he does,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Watch out.
That's fair. That's fair.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna say the East, and it's not just because of Jackson State over there. I've already said my bold prediction, and Jamie and Daniel, because y'all weren't on. I mean, Daniel, you weren't on the last episode, but I'm before we go, I'm gonna get y'all's bold prediction for the SWAC this year, or for HBCU period this year. Mine was that Alabama A&M was gonna shock some people. I think they could possibly.
You just saying that because you live in Alabama.
Nah, he ain't. He's saying it because they got 20-something D1 transfers on their team.
And I know what they kind of doing behind the scenes. And Coach Maynard, again.
Coach Maynard ain't scared of nobody. He ain't
at all. And his personality, he
was talking noise last year, wasn't he?
He listen, he called Deion out and he backed it up. He'll back it up. And when Deion came out, turnabout fair play, but he ain't backing down this year. He ain't, I guarantee you.
That's the thing. FAMU feel the same type of way because they lost by 1 point last year, and they had a penalty that kept a drive alive for Jackson to let Jackson come and take the game leading or ended up being the game winning score. So FAMU feel like they was 1 point away from beating them last year, and they feel like they better this year. Obviously Jackson is too, but it ain't no cakewalk for Jackson.
Looking at this, I see 4 teams that I think could possibly win the East or even, make noise in East. Alabama A&M, Bethune, FAMU, Jackson State.
Possibly. I give you 3. I don't know about Bethune. I think they could shock some people, but I don't know if they could beat all 3 of the other teams. They could beat 1 or 2 of them, but all 3 is gonna be a tough stretch for them.
In the West, I think Alcorn and Grambling. And I'm not saying that the other teams don't, but that's what I see.
So my bold prediction was that Grambling don't finish as high as everybody think, and I said that because who is Grambling's quarterback right now?
Yeah, we don't know.
Hey, you were just talking about how Grambling was going to shock people next season.
When I said that,
you didn't just say that a couple minutes ago.
No.
Oh, okay. All right.
No, I thought you said that. Y'all was saying that Southern was going to be Grambling because of the Bayou Classic. And I said, don't let Grambling shock some people. Then I said, Grambling got a winning record against everybody in the SWAC. So even if Southern win, they still got a long way to go to beat Grambling. Honestly, Grambling got everything but a quarterback, in my opinion. They got some guys that are talented who can play that position. Amani Gilmore, who was a transfer from Kentucky. They got the kid for Baxter, hometown guy. They got some guys there, but the person who I thought should have been the quarterback for them transferred out to Southern. So they got question marks that I don't know about right now. And honestly, I still got to see what that offense is going to look like because you got Hugh Jackson running a more pro-style offense, and you got John Simons, who everywhere he's been, he's ran an up-tempo, kind of, air raid type of offense. So where do they find the balance at with that offense? So, and then you don't really know who the quarterback is. So I look at Southern, and you know who Dooley is. He's been at Southern before. He knows what he wants to do. He's got some transfers and some talent in there too. So I think Southern is further along right now than Grambling is. I think Alcorn's further along than Grambling is. They got some transfers in there. They got some JUCO guys. We still don't know about their quarterback situation, but talking to Coach McNair and listening to Coach McNair at SWAC Media Day, it sounds like he knows who his quarterback is. So I still think Grambling behind them. And my boy from UAPB,
Skylar.
So I think he's gonna shock some people this year. So I think that Grambling finishes probably 3rd, 4th in that range, but I think it's Alcorn and Southern at the top.
All right. Jamie, Daniel, Jamie, with you being the guest, I'll give you the floor. Bold prediction for HBCU or SWAC, for next year.
Bold prediction: FAMU wins the conference.
Oh, but whenever I said FAMU, Jackson might not see. That's the same thing I was on. That's my prediction for the East. My prediction is Isaiah Land. I think is as great as he was last year. I think he's gonna turn it up a notch this year.
Man, I'm hopping on the bandwagon. I'm going Jackson State winning it all.
That's not a bold prediction.
That is not.
It is for me because all y'all just sat here and just said Jackson State wasn't gonna do nothing.
No, everybody's bold prediction was that Jackson State wasn't gonna win the East.
I said it went all next year.
What is it win it all?
Celebration Bowl too?
They win the Celebration Bowl?
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Hey, I got another one. 3 years, a HBCU player will be invited to the Heisman. Did I say that last time?
No, you said no. That's not what you said last time. That's
No.
That's bolder than what you said last time.
Last time I said I think there'll be two.
No, you said three. You said three. I said three. You said either 2 or 3 first round picks.
Two in the first round pick. But I think in 3 years, HBCU player will be invited to the Heisman. It'll be invited.
Tell our fans they need to get in the comment section. Why they trying to get on camera?
Nah, he promised they'll come on.
I told them they'd come on at the end of the show. Since they such loyal listeners and commenters.
So, but before we bring them on, Jamie, I want to thank you for coming on with us. Saying I know it's a little late. There they go. There they go. Y'all need. Hey, we're gonna have to get y'all to say the petty one.
Petty 2, petty 3.
Man, but look, I appreciate y'all having me, man. I loved it. Absolutely love chopping it up with y'all.
Oh yes, sir. Appreciate you for coming on again.
We're not gonna wait till media day to bring, to get you back.
There it is.
We'll get together between then. But ladies and gentlemen, it has been a fun one. We'll be back 2 weeks.
Before you end it, let me ask Jen, where can people go to follow you and your work and all that kind of stuff?
Man, you'll kind of find me Black College Sports Network. Football season's about to crank up, so you can follow me at Sport Voice JW on Twitter, and look for me Black College Sports Network, the Game Time Show. You'll also hear me calling some games on both the Black College Sports Network and ESPN Plus for the SIAC.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
With the smooth voice.
The docile tones.
I can see it now. Shador with
the harmonic sounds of Jenny Walker.
Travis.
The first Quiet Storm play-by-play host.
Oh man.
All right. Don't be shy now. Don't be shy.
I'm gonna say so.
Subscribe and like. Subscribe to the Golden Boot Pod.
That's what I'm talking about.
Y'all pray for me, man. Y'all pray for me.
So you got your hands full.
Don't say that.
Go on, man.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of HBCU Hour. And like that, we out.